Time now for Lions Central. Here's Brandon Alisaglu and Nick Kostora.
Our intro music may suggest otherwise, but this week it was the Lions fighting the dust against the Cleveland Browns. Welcome back into Lions Central Radio. I am Nick Kostora, alongside Brandon Alisaglu. And Brandon, I'm not sure, should we take a bit of a somber tone as we do the show this week?
Yeah, there's not going to be exclamations about being thankful for watching football again. Well, I'm not sure that was football we saw, but there's a lot of biting of the grass, I can tell you that.
Yeah, we'll try and keep an optimistic tone for you guys. We do have some interesting additions to get to kick off the show here. Some of them are more interesting than others, obviously. Brandon, we've got cornerback Myron Lewis, cornerback Rashean Mathis, linebacker Rocky McIntosh, and defensive tackle Justin Bannon joining the Lions. I'm obviously most intrigued with Rashean Mathis. The secondary can use all the help it can get. And we do have a former Pro Bowler joining the roster here. So far this week, he's already been working out some nickel package stuff, so that's somewhat intriguing. The other names here aren't doing a whole heck of a lot for me, but what are you thinking?
Well, you have to look at Justin Bannon maybe as just being camp fodder at this point. But as far as anybody really contributing anything, I think Rashean Mathis is going to be the only one. Rocky McIntosh is probably just another Ashley Palmer kind of journeyman QB or linebacker at this point.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Lewis, too, we're taking a cast off from a Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary that hasn't exactly been stellar in recent seasons. I'm pretty sure he was actually benched for a while in Tampa. So yeah, I wouldn't expect much beyond maybe some special teams action for him. Bannon did some nice things last year. I don't know. We'll see if he can work his way into the rotation. I'd say more interesting getting to is the subtraction this week, and that is we got rid of Mike Thomas. Brandon, I'm sure you remember we traded a fifth-round pick in the 2014 draft to get this guy. I saw he already signed with Arizona, but yeah, here we go. We got Mike Thomas is gone. Any thoughts on this?
Well, as far as Mike Thomas, losing him as a player, at this point, that's just kind of water under the bridge. He wasn't doing anything anyways. But what really irks me is that we could have taken a kicker or perhaps a punter with that pick next year if Sam Martin doesn't work out.
That's the spot where you take him, isn't it? The fifth round? That's the money spot.
The way Sam Martin played this week, maybe we should go in the third or fourth round. That was pretty brutal.
The first week was so good, too. I commented, like, we're Nick Harris, good riddance because we have Sam Martin, and then he does this. He is a rookie. I mean, it's the second week of the preseason. Let's cut him some slack, but that was a poor performance from the Lions punter.
Well, I don't like to call him the punter. I like to refer to him as their fifth-round draft pick.
Yeah, that's probably the better way to do it. Just so no one ever forgets, we drafted Sam Martin in the fifth round.
Never forget.
Let's go. Let's look at. We also we got rid of cornerback Brandon King, who I'm going to go ahead and assume most of our listeners didn't even know was on the roster, but now he's officially not on the roster. And we also released Corey Greenwood, so there's some potential that never really worked out for the Lions there as well.
Yeah, it's just the bottom of the roster being churned, and that's what every team does. Nothing to major import here.
Yeah, I tried to say potential. I'm not sure there ever actually was any there, but so be it. But let's try and get into this Browns-Lions game because, well, we have to. We have to. I know. You beat me to it. Yeah, we have to get into this. We have to dissect it, and we have to tell you all why the Lions aren't dead in the water. So they looked awful against Cleveland, terrible, pathetic, bad, any other adjective or superlative you can think of to say they were just not good.
SOL,
Brandon,
baby.
Yeah.
SOL.
I do want to start, though. What did we like here? What? Let's take some positives from this game and say what worked out for the Lions.
Well, you know where I'm going to go with this.
I have no idea where you're going.
As always, Ziggy Ansah played a nice game. And the thing was, this was against Joe Thomas. This is back-to-back weeks where he's played in above average, if not good to great, left tackle. And he's held his own. He was chucking the block and making plays as far as stuffing the run, which is exactly what we were probably more worried about him, we knew he could run by people. We didn't know if he could hold up in the blocking game. And I also really liked the way Nick Fairley was working. He was everywhere. I mean, how could you not love that?
Yeah, there was a lot to like. I mean, I think we can go ahead and say Joe Thomas is pretty much the best left tackle in football, if not one of them. He looked great, Ansah looked great against him. Nick Fairley, Sue rotating in at defensive end. We can get into this for a while because I'm just super excited about what we're seeing there. We just have so many pieces on this defensive line that we can move Fairley and Sue to D end and just there's just so much havoc that we can wreak with what we have on this defensive line. We have which is bountiful of riches in players on that defensive line.
Well, it's a good thing too because we'll get into it later, but that secondary, that's brutal. But yeah, the way that they were moving him around, they would have Ansah go on the inside with Jones, who might be more naturally acclimated to providing a pass rush from the middle, anyways. But as far as Fairley outside, there was at least 2 times that I can remember where he just straight bull rushed whoever was on top of him, just straight back into Brandon Weeding, causing missed throws and all sorts of things from a guy who actually might not end up being a good quarterback. I didn't know I'd ever say that before, but go figure.
But with Fairley, I think people underestimate his athleticism because of his size, but he can move. And that's why they're putting him at defensive end, is because he can do so much. He doesn't have to just bull rush. He can actually move around tackles and guards, and he can get around him. He's quick. He's making plays sideline to sideline. This is the type of player that we heard about in training camp, being a leader, being a great player in practice. And, gosh, we're seeing it on the field. So I really want to hammer home how good Nick Fairley has been, because he is definitely one of the few bright spots that we've seen so far. The other big one that I've seen so far, at least, has been Reggie Bush, who has been as good as advertised from everything I've seen so far. I really liked what I've seen out of Reggie Bush. Are you with me here?
Yeah, you can't really complain about the way he seamlessly fits in this offense. He really does. He was catching those swing passes and perfectly in stride, and you have to respect his speed and his athleticism when he gets out there. It's scary for defenses, but the problem was here is, at least for the Cleveland Browns game, was there anybody else who was catching the ball that could cause separation? He was getting separation, so that was another thing that you had to appreciate.
Yeah, as far as that separation goes, I don't know. They were really trying to force feed the ball to Patrick Edwards. Is that the guy that they want to see get separation when the ball isn't going Calvin Johnson's way? I don't know. I'm with you. There's a lot of questions there as to who is going to find separation. Reggie Bush did it when he got the ball out of the backfield. He looked great, but I'm going to say between the tackles too, as a kind of hammered home in the past. He did it. He went between the tackles.
Yeah.
He looks good in every facet. It's, again, preseason, whatever. Reggie Bush, I'm very excited what I see out of him.
Well, and one thing that I seem to forget every week, it's not that I'm excited about him, but the fact that he's only getting paid $4 million a year. I mean, that's a very salary cap friendly difference maker.
Not exactly superstar money.
No, not even close. He's not holding out. He's not getting $30 million guaranteed. Well, think about this. Chris Johnson was guaranteed almost twice as much money as Reggie Bush got total, $16 to $30 million.
Wow.
Which would you rather have at this point? For half the money at least.
Yeah. The fact that it's even an argument tells you what contract works out better there. I kind of want to get into something else I liked in the game because I like Devin Taylor, and I thought he was another high point on the defensive line. He looked really good. The whole defensive line looked good. Sue, I don't think we mentioned him yet. He was all over the field. Is there any more we can say about this defensive line before we have to get into some of the more somber stuff?
Well, before I start downing some tequila or anything like that, let's at least talk about the fact that I really like that this defense is diagnosing screenplays when they're happening. It's something that it seems almost counterintuitive to the Y9, the rush up the field scheme, where they're noticing when there's going to be a screen pass, and it seems like they broke up every screen pass, and that goes back to last week too. That's how Ziggy Ansah got his interception. I thought that was a real high point of the defense and a sign of that they're just getting it. They're getting everything.
Well, we know the front four is, but was there good signs from the linebacking core? Did anything jump at you from those guys this week?
You're not going to like this, but Stephen Tulloch jumped out to me.
Oh, boy.
Because...
For all the right reasons?
Well, for all the right reasons of proving me right. There was a couple plays that stand out in my mind. There was one where he blew right through the line, and then that's obviously great. And then he got there and just whiffed. Ended up getting a shoestring tackle because others helped, and I guess it could be argued that his penetration maybe forced the running back a certain way. But the fact of the matter is he could have had a 2-3 yard loss as opposed to probably what was a stuffed play or a 1 yard gain. Which, okay, still a positive play in a way, but that's the difference I want from my $55 million middle linebacker. And then there was, of course, that blown coverage that, didn't that look familiar?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It was the touchdown play to Jordan Cameron. Tulloch's lined up in man coverage, and he just ends up freezing himself in place when they do crossing routes near the goal line, and he didn't look like a veteran linebacker making $55 million. We can just put it that way and try and be nice about it.
Yeah, that's probably the the most PC way to put it. He actually made me think about our newest sponsor, Bonita Tequila, because there's a good chance their stock's going to go through the roof for all Detroit fans. It is premium tequila, folks. I would encourage you to check it out. Maybe just have a bottle laying around on Sundays if they're going to play it like this, especially when you have guys that make, $55 million missing assignments like a high school player would.
Yeah, so you can down that tequila when we're talking about the bust of the week, and that's a segment we might try and start doing on this show once in a while. And that, for Brandon, is Tulloch the bust of the week for you here? Is there another direction you want to go?
He wasn't good, but I've got to give it. I kind of want to give it to the secondary as a whole. Break off a little piece of it for a couple different guys. Let's start with Don Carey. He
always a fun place to start.
Yeah, he looked atrocious. I don't know that there's. Where's Chris Hope? Can we put Chris Hope out there with the first teamers? This Don Carey thing is not working. Like the first touchdown to Jordan Cameron, GQ got beat up a little bit, made a move inside by Jordan Cameron where he couldn't even get hands on him, and Don Carey just kind of looked at it for a second and then reacted. By the time he tried to close in, it was too late, and there were missed tackles. I'm not sure what he's doing out there anymore.
The worst part about it for me is it's the preseason, so the Lions aren't exactly showing their best defensive looks. They're playing more of vanilla schemes, just straight man coverage. And Don Carey is completely inept, and to a degree, a lot of the secondary has been so far this preseason. When he's asked to just one-on-one guard a receiver, he can't do it.
Right, and if I have to say, though, we knew that going in, though. Two people that disappoint me even more, though, is Bill Bentley and Ron Bartell. I mean, I read all summer was how these guys are looking great in practice, and after looking at the way that anybody not named Calvin Johnson tries to get separation, which they couldn't do, no wonder they looked great. So these guys were getting burnt all over the place. It's scary. Yeah. I don't know where to go with that secondary anymore.
Ron Bartell is Ron Bartell. I mean, the book's out on it. He's a veteran that's just not very good. I don't think anyone was expecting to see a major turnaround in the preseason. His first-team reps, which are gone now, by the way, Darius Slay took those first-team reps, so we don't have to worry about Ron Bartell wasting any more valuable playing time for this team. But Bentley, yeah, we heard so much good things about him in training camp, and I haven't seen any of it through 2 weeks of preseason action, so is there any hope of Bentley even competing for a first-string job? Because I don't see how there is.
Did you just go Manny is Manny on us?
Yeah, it's Bartell being Bartell. That's all it is. It's Ron Bartell. There's nothing to say about him. We know who he is. This isn't a starting defensive back in this league. It's just not.
Well, he could change his name to Alfonso Smith, and I wouldn't even know the difference.
Right.
But as far as Bentley, I guess you still have to cut him a little slack. He's still the second-year player. I don't know how much longer that's going to work, but as far as his playing time this year, hopefully that's why they brought in Rasheed Mathis. maybe he wanted too much money at the beginning of free agency or the beginning of camp, and now that he won't have to go through a training camp, he knocks off that price quite a bit. He's still better than practically anything we have back there, save for Dalmas, Quinn, and hopefully Houston, who actually didn't look that great either.
He looked like he just didn't want to tackle people. I don't know. I didn't see any aggression out of him. Maybe he's one of those guys that doesn't throw his body around in the preseason because he looked disinterested.
Well, and one other thing about disinterested, how about Jim Schwartz and discipline? I'm kind of starting to get just a little, and then we touched on this a few weeks ago about whether it's a good thing that they're playing with their heart on their sleeve. Well, in this situation, we got Willie Young out there fighting. Ndamukong Suh got a penalty, but when you're Ndamukong Suh, I'm gonna give you that leeway every time. But it doesn't look like he acknowledges that it's even happening. He just kind of looks the other way or just doesn't seem to care. It's Rex Ryan and his quarterbacks. Whatever, they're out there, they're playing quarterback kind of, not going to pay attention. Well, this is his team kind of imploding on itself, and if he's not going to lay down the rules or at least hold somebody accountable for these types of actions, it's not going to work. It's like a manager who tries to tell you at work that you can't use your cell phone, and then he's over there texting during the dinner rush. You're not going to pay attention to what he's saying anymore. You'll be like, well, whatever, he's doing it, I'm going to. Schwartz needs to do something about this.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for your analogies. I don't know if you just come up with those on the spot or what, but those are gold. I don't know. With Schwartz, we got to tread carefully because we've been down this road before with him, and I don't know, with Titus Young a couple years ago, I remember they got into it and ended up Titus Young was just a head case. With Schwartz, I don't know. I see fire, but I don't know if I see it at the right times. And
after a game, going after Jim Harbaugh isn't the best time. Sorry, I had to say it.
No, you're right. It's just, I don't know. I don't think we're seeing the right things out of Schwartz, but I don't want to jump to conclusions either. I feel like we're walking a fine line. Is this team in danger of getting out of control? Because I don't think so. I don't think that's something that could happen.
Well, yeah, and that could be a fair point. Part of it was definitely the refs. Reggie Bush getting that penalty, that personal foul, he got pushed to the ground. Yeah. Oh, my. And what I want to know, these are the same refs that are reffing during the regular season, right?
Yeah, I kind of want to I want our listeners to get on this on Facebook and Twitter, and if they felt the same way. But watching these refs, they looked incompetent. The lead ref couldn't announce a penalty. And it wasn't just one penalty. This happened multiple times where he didn't know what to say, or he'd look over to another ref. I don't know if he was looking for what sign to use or what signal, but he just looked clueless.
The replacement refs looked more competent last year.
I swear, I was wondering if that's what we were dealing with was replacement refs.
Well, the only reason I don't think it is that is because there's one particular referee who speaks like the ladies' man character from the SNL skits and movie. And so me and my buddies call him the ladies' man, obviously.
Hold on. For those listeners out there that don't know the ladies' man, could you maybe give them a tease of what that is?
That's not even fair, man.
All right, whatever, man.
I don't have it in me. I'm not an actor. I'm not a thespian. But yeah, he was out there. So these have to be, at least a few of them are the normal refs we're going to see on Sundays. This has obviously been a point that has been getting hammered home for years, but wow, that's a scary, scary thought. Almost as scary as the secondary.
Oh, wow. God, your analogies, transitions, everything is flowing tonight, folks. Yeah. Gosh, I don't even know how to turn from that. I want you to just continue the transition. Lead us into the secondary.
Well, what was also scary, and actually I'm going to lead it out of the secondary, because I want to touch on this, is the lack of another receiver out there. You and I talked before the show, and I wasn't even really aware that Ryan Broyles had played. I did watch the entire game, but as you get into that second half, everything kind of starts to blur because they were looking terrible, and guys that you're going to see for maybe another week or out there. But how valuable is Calvin Johnson?
Yeah, Broyles, he had 19 snaps, and I read, I think it was a 20-minute article, he had 19 snaps. That's why Tony Scheffler, the tight end, only had like 3 of them. But you didn't know Broyles was on the field. Nate Burleson, you knew was on the field because he kept dropping every pass thrown his way. through 2 games, he doesn't have a catch. Without Calvin Johnson on the field, the offense, the passing game looks completely inept. Brandon Pettigrew pulled a Brandon Pettigrew and dropped another easy pass over the middle. It's a recurring theme with these guys. Who's going to stretch the field vertically without Calvin Johnson? We don't have an answer to that. Who's going to catch the underneath routes? We want it to be Ryan Broyles and Brandon Pettigrew. Pettigrew doesn't know how to catch, and Broyles isn't seen when he takes 19 snaps. If you're looking for an answer on this show, I don't think we're going to be able to give it to you. This is just going to be a problem for a long time in my book.
Well, and this all ties back into the Ron Bartels and Bentley, how good they are thing. Maybe it was they were both feeding off of each other. Since Lions receivers can't get any separation, the secondary looks good. And when these receivers are making plays in practice, it's because the secondary is atrocious. It all kind of feeds off each other. Then they get out there and play a defense like the Browns, who probably going to be a top 5, top 10 defense.
Yeah.
So they're good. And you realize, these guys can't do this. It's scary. We're getting down to crunch time, and I don't know where we're going with this.
Yeah, well, I want to get into the position battles and kind of lead off with that. That wide receiver, the second spot, it's completely up for grabs at this point, isn't it? I mean, who is going to be the second wide receiver? Nate Burleson, I don't think, has a lock on this position whatsoever.
Well, it has to be Ryan Broyles. I mean, I know I said I don't know where they're going to go with this position battle like 2 seconds ago.
You know where you want them to go, though.
And it just has to be. Burleson is a nice little complimentary player at this point, and a good emotional leader and all those great things. But we need somebody with some explosion out there to be able to cause some stress for defensive coordinators and defensive backs.
Right.
I mean, do you see it playing out any other way?
Well, and I think a point that a lot of people have made is that they want to see Ryan Broyles in the slot is because that's where he can be most effective. But I don't think we can afford to have him in the slot because we need him on the outside stretching the field because I don't think Nate Burleson is capable of doing that anymore. He's proving time and time again that is he a possession receiver at best, a possession receiver that doesn't get any catches? There's issues here. Yeah, I want it to be Broyles because there's upside there, and there's going to be production out of him. We didn't see it this week, but I'm very interested to see him in week 3 because I think he can make a statement with just a couple catches and lock down that spot.
Yeah, exactly. All he basically has to show is a flicker of that hope, and we're all set.
Yeah. Well, as far as other position battles, I kind of hate to say it, but I think David Akers locked up the kicking job this week.
Well, that could be. He's doing what he needs to do. Actually, what was more impressive to me, though, was his 63-yarder that he hit in practice the other day. It was like, well, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of I'm reluctant, but I'm relenting. I understand it. It's going to be David Akers.
Which, he did fall apart a little bit, but if he can get his mental game back, which it seems like he is, I mean, it's just kind of like golf probably in that respect, although I've never kicked more than a couple extra points in my life. But I sure have golfed a few holes, and you'll start to feel good and start hitting a few balls, and then everything will fall apart. And I'm not very good at golf, so he's a good kicker. Hopefully he can figure that out a lot quicker. My biggest concern was his leg power versus Rugland. If he can hit a 63-yarder, I'm good.
I don't. Can we keep Kickalicious on the practice squad or something? I don't really want to let this guy go. I think there is a potential for a really good kicker there. I'm biased. I love the guy's YouTube videos and everything, but he's been good when we've played him too. So can you keep him on a practice squad, or is that even an option?
Yeah, I actually put that on Twitter. I think last week I was discussing that. The thing you do have to worry about is the way you get to the practice squad is you get cut and designated for the practice squad, then every team gets a chance to pick you up, go through waivers. But if they pick you up, you automatically have to go on their 53-man roster. So it's probably
Who's
a good chance.
Who's going to take a kicker off waivers?
Well, that's how Chris Klug got his start. The punter he's in Oakland now, but was with the Vikings forever, the outspoken punter.
You would make a point that proves me wrong. Darn it, how did you have just Chris Clue just sitting there on deck waiting to answer that question?
Oh, I keep a wide section of notes here just to troll you. Who do you think that is on your articles?
For the listeners, we did not talk about that pre-show, and he had Chris Cluey lined up for that. But kudos, sir. But I think we really need to wrap up the Browns talk, because let's just put this game behind us and hope that it never gets spoken of again.
Yeah, that was a fitting eulogy. If I never hear of it again, that's fine with me.
Yeah, and as Lions fans have been doing for as long as we can remember, it's time to look towards the future, which is next week. We're going to be playing the New England Patriots, and this is where we want to bring in our guest, Patriots host with us on the Pro Football Radio, Pro Football Central family, Steve Balestrieri. So we're going to go ahead and turn to our interview with him now.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central Radio Network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
Football fans, check out the official T-shirt apparel shop for the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Check out BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. That's BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. You think it, we ink it. They have an awesome 24-hour turnaround time. You can also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45255. That's BigFrog.com/Cincinnati.
Steve, first thing we want to do is thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure. I'm always happy to talk football.
Well, not too many people are always too excited to talk Lions football, but that's what we do. This weekend we're playing your New England Patriots, and we kind of want to ask some Pat-centric questions to you here, starting with coming into this game against Detroit. What would you say are the positions or the areas that New England is really trying to shore up this week?
Well, the first week they played Deshaun Jackson. Last week they played Vincent Jackson. They had their issues with both of them. And then after practice today, Kyle Arrington was talking about that very thing. And he's like, it just doesn't get any easier. We had Deshaun Jackson, we had Vincent Jackson, and now we have Megatron. So, their big thing is the Lions offense. Of course, with Megatron, and you got Calvin out there, he's a load to stop on a good day. So, they're going to have their hands full trying to make sure that they don't have him burning them all over the field.
Right on, and yeah, that's like we were just discussing. It's probably the only thing you have to worry about from the passing game, except for maybe Reggie Bush. But we wanted to know, how important is winning this Week 3 game to the Patriots? Would it be any cause for concern?
No, I don't really think so. I mean, Belichick, I was at his press conference this afternoon, and, he put it down. Of course, every game he talks about is important, but he was more interested in getting a good evaluation from his players. I think they want to see their starters play well. I don't really think they're worried too much about the final score of the game, as long as their starters do well. Of course, you want to see all your players do well, but I think that's the main issue with them. The last time they played Detroit in the preseason, it was Week 3 in 2011, and they got their butts handed to them. I think it was 34-10.
Oh, believe me, we haven't forgotten. It's been the high point of.
That was a big moment for us Lions fans.
I got my start football blogging for a website out of the Michigan area, and all the guys up there were big-time Lions fans. So I know how you guys feel. I feel your pain, because as a Patriots fan, I'm a bit older than you guys, I'm sure, and I remember the lean days for the Patriots, and trust me, they were pretty lean.
Yeah, but three Super Bowls in 4 years has a way of making us jealous.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to go back to that game you were just talking about. Was there any we're always wondering about the outside perspective of the Lions. Did that game cause you to have any animosity towards the Lions, or maybe a feeling for New England fans as it was? Because that was kind of the breaking out of the Lions' bad boy image.
Oh yeah, because I mean they were throwing Brady around like a rag doll in that game. The offensive line had a horrible night. The Lions' defensive line had their way with them, I thought, for the entire football game. It wasn't just the starters. I thought it was pretty much all night long. And that's something that the Patriots pride themselves on, is protecting Brady, and they couldn't do it that night. And that was an issue. I mean, that was something the coaches made a point of, saying they're going to play teams that have a good pass rush like this. They can't afford to have that kind of stuff. And, I think that was a rallying point for them, is the offensive line has to buckle down and play better. And Brady had a fantastic year in 2011. So, I think that was a wake-up call for the Patriots as much as it was for the Lions.
And kind of with Brady in this week 3 preseason game, for us with Stafford, we want him to play quite a bit because we haven't seen anything out of our offense. But for you with Tom Brady, it's obviously business as usual. Is there a set amount of time you want to see him play in this game? Week 3 is supposed to be where your starters play the longest, but how long do you need to see out of Tom Brady in a week 3 preseason game?
That's a good question. And we were talking about that today while we were watching the practice. I myself would like to see him play the first half. I think it's important for him to get the first half. They have so many new wide receivers, so many young guys. Danny Amendola probably won't play. He has a nagging injury. It's nothing serious. Belichick said today it was day to day. And, but they have so many other young guys that are just finding their feet in this offense. I would like to see them dedicate a half to these, guys you're going to see all the time on the football field. And then I would like to see Ryan Mallett for the majority of the second half, because when Tim Tebow's in there, they change their offense. They go away from a Patriot-style offense to more of an offense that fits Tim Tebow's strong points. And the funny thing was, the funny thing was that he actually had a good week at practice last week. You would not have known that by the way things turned out on Friday, but I thought he was really good, especially on Wednesday afternoon with the joint practice with the Buccaneers. He looked really sharp, and that we were expecting at least a little bit more than he showed on Friday.
Steve, I don't know if we characterize. We've had our talks about Tebow before, but as far as you talked about Brady working with these different guys, what is the New England tight end situation like right now? It seems to be in such a constant state of flux, and for us that aren't avid followers of the Patriots happenings, what exactly is going on at that position?
Well, about a year ago they signed Jake Ballard, who had got hurt in the Super Bowl against the Patriots for the Giants, and he had microfracture surgery. I can never say that. He's still in the recovery mode. He's still really not 100%, but as an inline blocker, he's been really, really strong, and that was always a strong point anyway. He's like 6'6". They list him now at 260, but he looks more like 265, and he's a big guy. And they have this is another guy I can never pronounce his name, Homanamo Nui, and he's another inline blocker who can catch the ball a little bit. But the guy that's been turning heads all through the spring and summer has been an undrafted free agent out of Nevada, Zach Sudfeld. He's a big kid, 6'7", 260, got great hands. He doesn't have the speed that Gronkowski has down the seam, but the kid can make some plays, and he's been working himself into not only a roster position, but a starting position. I think until Gronkowski is healthy, I think you'll see him probably catch more balls than anybody from the tight end position. I think the other guys are more inline blockers with the occasional catch.
Well, Steve, with that, we want to thank you for coming on the show. And anytime you want to talk Lions football, we are open ears, and we'd love to have you back on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, guys. I would love to come back on anytime. And, the Lions have some some interesting weapons. I love Megatron. I mean, I think he's unbelievable. And, from a fan perspective, as somebody, usually when I see the Lions, they're playing somebody, neither one of my favorite teams. I just want to see Calvin have a big game. Of course, I don't want to see him have a big game on Thursday night, but you know what I mean.
Oh, it's the preseason. Let him play well.
We need it.
Actually, when Vincent Jackson was here for the joint practices, I was just having a ball watching him. No matter who they trotted out against him in practice, he was just torching everybody. And it was just something to behold. I mean, as a football fan, you just have to admire that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Steve.
Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
So we again thank you, Steve Balestrieri, for coming on. You guys listen to him on Patriots Central Radio. He clearly knows his stuff. Really interesting to talk to him. But Brandon, one thing I've noticed with multiple guests now is that all they ever want to seem to talk about is Calvin Johnson.
That's all I want to talk about half the time.
Yeah. I guess I understand their point. And that, going into this week, we do want to see Calvin Johnson, but I don't think he's the player we need to see something from. This is a topic we talked about going into the Cleveland game. The player or players, there's going to be lots of them after this past week, but who do you really need to see perform against the Patriots?
Well, quickly, I need to see Louis Delmas on the field.
Yeah.
I need to see it. I need to know that it's actually going to happen. Remember how worried we were when we first started this show that is he ever going to play? Are we looking at a job at best situation? But so I just need to see that. One thing I would love to see, though, is whatever the starting offensive line is going to be, I want to see those 5 guys play multiple series in a row and hopefully play well, because that's a good New England defense they're going to be going up against. Another, well, kind of like the Browns, another defense that nobody's really talking about, but is very likely going to be a top 5, top 10 defense.
Yeah. Earlier in the show, we already said we saw Ryan Broyles on the field. Well, he was on the field, but we didn't actually see him. He had 19 snaps, so we really want to see something out of him this week. And for the second week in a row, I'm going to hammer home this point because, well, I want to. Mikel LaShore, did you see him this past week? Did you see him do anything?
He played?
Yeah, he had 1 rush, and you know how many yards he gained? 0. So Mikel LaShore, this job is quickly going away from your grasp, I think. Joique Bell, impressive might be a strong word, but he was at least solid. We saw him catch a pass out of the backfield. We saw him take 4 carries for 17 yards. That's what you're going to want out of the number 2 back behind Bush. LaShore, he only had 1 carry. He needed more work to do something, but 0 yards. He just wasn't on the field. He's got 2 weeks left to assert himself with that second spot. I don't know what I'm going to say next week if he does this again, because I'm running out of negatives to get to on Mikel LaShore.
You might not see him next week. He might not be something to talk about next week if he continues to play at such a low level. I thought Bell was kind of impressive. I guess I wouldn't, like you, I wouldn't quite say just impressive. But one thing I found odd is they weren't hesitating to put LaShore, split him out like they do Reggie Bush, which I don't know if that's where we want LaShore, assuming we want LaShore at all.
Yeah, I don't know if we want LaShore in the backfield based on his yards per carry. I don't know, maybe they're just trying to do something with him to spark him. I'm open to anything with Mikel LaShore at this point because we need to get some return on that investment. There just isn't any yet, and there's plenty more that we need to see from the defense. Where do we even start on the linebackers, the secondary? I don't want to single out a specific player because do we call it the back 7? I want to see anything out of the back 7. There's just so many players that need to show up.
Yeah, I agree. One, and it's unbelievable that I have to say this about an NFL team, but I'd like to see some solid tackling.
Ooh, yeah.
Very fundamental in the game of football, I hear. It'd be nice if professional players who are paid money to do this could actually wrap up a ball ball carrier or a pass catcher or a quarterback and bring him to the ground.
You know, wasn't that a staple of the Rod Marinelli regime, was form tackling?
You had to go there? This wasn't already a show that was driving people to drink?
You're the one that started talking about form tackling. So I guess that leads us into the confidence meter, which we have to do it. Scale of 1 to 10 here, Brandon. 10 being the highest. Your confidence meter in this Detroit Lions football team heading into a game against the New England Patriots.
It's sitting at a 5 right now. I'm really lukewarm on this team. Like we've talked about throughout this podcast, the good reports on the secondary. I never expected much from the linebacking core, but I was hoping Tulloch would rebound a little more. And then this lack of burst outside of Calvin Johnson, I'm kind of looking at a team that I'm not excited about right now.
Yeah, that was a very nice 5 that you gave him. I'm leaning more towards a 3. If people are looking for the formula behind that rating, I don't have it. It's just that's how I feel about this team right now, is about a 3. We still haven't seen our starting offense register a point in 2 games. The Jets and the Browns, we couldn't get any points on the board with our starters. Now we're going up against New England. Maybe a game against the Patriots will do what it did for us 2 years ago and give us that jolt of energy in front of a sold-out Ford Field crowd. I don't know. The confidence is so low with this team right now, but then who knows, next week maybe we'll jump right up after a big win over the Patriots. That doesn't sound too bad.
No, it doesn't, but I also wouldn't get – it's not so much the win. I just want to see something out of this team to get emotional about besides them yelling and screaming at opposing players and whatever else. But I guess at this point, I'd like to remind everybody to, if you like what you hear, tell a friend. That's the price of admission. We'd like to grow the show. We'd also love it if you'd follow us on Twitter and follow us on Facebook. That way you can interact with us. We'd love to answer your questions on air. We'd love to ask your questions to our guests. We'll let you know who they're going to be ahead of time, and if they're good, we'll read them on air.
Yeah, we keep our Twitter handles pretty simple. We just go with our names. I'm at Nick Castora. He's at Brandon Alyssaglu. Guys, we want to hear from you. We want the feedback. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Ask us questions. We might ask them on the air. Just do whatever you can to get involved with this show. We're having fun doing it, and we're heading into the regular season where things really get interesting. So this is the time to let your voices be heard as well. I'm assuming just the opinions of me and Brandon aren't enough for you. So let's get yours on the air as well. And hopefully start that next week, and we can talk about a big Lions preseason victory over the New England Patriots. I know everyone's excited for that, but until we talk about that, for Brandon Alyssaglu, I am Nick Castora. Thank you so much for listening to Lions Central Radio.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.